Tom Politzer, the tenor sax soloist with the legendary Tower of Power Band, in their 55th anniversary year playing at the Nice Jazz Festival. In our conversation, Tom tells us the story about how he landed the gig, how he managed to learn and memorize the vast repertoire so quickly, and what it's like to play burning sax solos in front of huge crowds on classic Tower of Power tunes. Enjoy. So, we just got back from the Nice Jazz Festival. Tower of Power played a killer show. You did all the saxophone solos. Is that how it normally goes? Like, you're the soloist, Emilio doesn't play.
Yeah, the lead tenor chair in Tower Power is the main soloist in the band, partly because Lenny Pickett in the band. So.
Right, and I was thinking about that when I was listening to you play, and there's so much altissimo, like the altissimo is part of every solo, right? And you're going way up there, and there's like all this control, and now that's like the Lenny Pickett legacy a little bit.
You know, I couldn't play that high when I joined the band, and I wasn't too worried about it because when I did my audition, I kind of just wasn't trying to sound like Lenny. But as I've been in the band longer, it's like, what's that tune? I forget that tune, but he would do this lick that was really high, and go like, I want to learn how to play pretty like that. And Lenny, I've gotten to know Lenny through the years. He always says, just put vibrato on it. But no, his altissimo is so round and dark, and I'm getting there, just little by little. And
do you ever ask Lenny, like for, what he does for altissimo? Does he ever give you any? No?
I don't need to, because he's done it so many times this close to me. Oh. And I watch him do it, and I watch what he's fingering, and I watch how he's doing it. The only thing I don't know is what he's doing with his tongue position. Okay. So I experiment with that. Okay. Because my friend in Las Vegas, Joe Scriba, who's got a great high range, he was talking about tongue position and raising your tongue. So I've experimented with that. I actually kind of get the note out and then figure out what I'm doing. After, yeah. Okay. Because I don't know what I'm doing.
Well, it's hard to see. We can't see what's in there, and sometimes maybe we think we know what we're doing, but maybe.
I mean, there was I'm a clarinet player. That's what all my lessons were on. Okay. I started on clarinet, classical clarinet, lessons since I was 10, and I didn't start playing the saxophone until I was 16. And the great thing about that is if you can play the clarinet well at 16, saxophones really pick it up pretty fast. Yeah. I started on Barry. And they wanted me to play in the jazz band, and I was going like, I don't want to play the baritone saxophone, that big old Bundy horn. And my friend, I was a junior, he was a senior, he goes, well, do you know what we're playing? And he played me like Stay Loose with Bruce, Maynard Ferguson, MFM 4 and 5. And then he played me Corazon, which they had in the book. Do you know that tune? Baritone starts, it's Woody Herman. Okay. And then he played me Squib Cakes. And when I heard Squib Cakes, and I had been listening to a lot of soul music, because my older brother, I'm like the youngest of 4 boys by 7 years, and they were into soul music. And so when my radio was tuned to pop stations, my brothers went like, no. You got to listen to KDIA or KSOL from Oakland. Sorry, I'm from the Bay Area. People don't know that. So I was listening to Sly Stone was a DJ. I think it was on KSOL before Sly Stone was famous. Okay. So I was listening to all the soul music, and I was kind of had all that roots. My friends listening to rock. We kind of like met in the middle with bands like Chicago and the Doobie Brothers. Yeah. We kind of met in the middle. But I said, yeah, when I heard Squib Cakes. And then how ignorant I was. He goes, these guys are from Oakland. I go, they are? Tower Power's from Oakland? How come I never heard of these guys? Well, just wasn't paying attention, basically. Right. So then I started paying attention to stuff. And I started on baritone. And yeah.
How old were you at this point?
16.
16, okay.
Yeah. So I was 16. I was halfway through my junior year. So a few months before my 17th birthday. And then next year I played lead alto in the high school band. You know who I went to high school with?
Oh.
Stanley Jordan. Stanley Jordan was a year behind me and played in the jazz band.
Okay, and where was that? And that was in the Bay Area, but like
Gunn High School in Palo Alto, California.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where Stanley's from. And so that was an incredible experience. Seeing him at a young age doing all this stuff.
Yeah, the crazy stuff he does,
Yeah. He did a recital, Jay, he did a recital for the music theory class where he played left hand tapping on his guitar and the right hand on piano. When he played that Bach fugue that goes da 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 dun 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 dun, and he did like he started on piano and then he did on guitar, and he's playing these 2 lines, and he's doing this. He's probably like 16 or 17, and he looks up in the middle of while he's doing this, and he goes, "You know, you almost have to be schizophrenic to do this." And I looked at him and I go like, that's. How can you do, that's not what I thought.
I've seen him do, I've been to a concert of his where he's just playing solo guitar, and and he's doing the work of 4 people.
Yeah, I know.
All by himself.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So anyway, that was my early music education, and
Okay, then you said you auditioned for Tower Power. So, can we, I don't know, maybe fast forward.
Yeah. So how that happened? Okay, so the few times I've done clinics, people always ask me, how do you get a gig? How do people get a gig, right? And I always say, it's who knows you're playing, who you know and who knows you're playing. So the chair came up, and Norbert Stachel was the sax player, and he's a friend of mine. So he dropped my name. On top of that, the new lead singer was Larry Braggs, and I'd been working with him for 4 years at several gigs. Starlight Room in San Francisco, which is a regular Friday, Saturday night gig, which I was sort of semi in the band. I did that gig a lot, and it was like a R&B soul band review kind of thing. So he dropped my name, and then the third guy, I was in a wedding band called the Chain of Fools, and we had Jeff Tamalier, who was playing Tower Power, guitar player with Tower. He subbed in the band, and he heard me play a couple gigs with the wedding band. So he heard me solo. So those 3 guys all dropped my name, and so I literally got a phone call in January of 2002, literally out of the blue, 2002. My phone rings, and it was the manager of Tower, and her name was Michelle Zarin at the time, was the manager. And, would you like to audition for Tower?
Oh, so you had to be invited to audition in the first, So
Yeah,
you had to be invited.
Well, it's kind of like, sort of a silly question.
Yeah. No, but it's not like they're putting it up in, a Guitar Center,
But I literally, at the time, it was a kind of a significant change in my life from just breaking up with somebody and starting a new life, and I hadn't been practicing, and I'm kind of big on New Year's resolutions, but I only make 1 or 2, but I really try to keep them. One was like, I got to start practicing again, because the gigs I've been doing were kind of like weren't helping me grow, and I wasn't practicing very much. So I actually started. I remember it was really weird. I don't remember like a lot of stuff. But I remember it was January 19th, 2002, when the phone rang, and I said, I'm going to practice every day for half an hour, just a half an hour. But by January 19th, I was kind of up to 2 hours, 2.5 hours, because how that builds.
Yeah.
When you haven't been practicing, the first thing that happens is you don't know what to practice. Anyway, that's another story. Phone rings. I said, yes, I want to do the gig. And I literally, Jay, I put the phone down and I said out loud in the room, I go, this is my gig. Actually, I said, this is my fucking gig. This is my fucking gig. And I said, I don't care who auditions. I'm nailing this audition. And I immediately pulled out my Tower Power CDs, which I hadn't listened to in a little while. And I started listening to it. And I just basically did what, how I learned to play a lot was I played along with records. The way I learned to play funk is I played along with Earth, Wind and Fire records or Tower records. And I just basically improvise over the whole
thing.
the whole thing,
Yeah.
even while the singer's singing and stuff,
Right.
right? And just, and I figure out what the chord changes were mainly by ear and by where they laid on my horn. And then later, I actually started learning the theory behind that. But I'm an ear player. I mean, I really am. So when I play a tune for the first time, like if something's really hard jazz-wise, I really have to go home and listen to it and analyze it. And then I have to write out, the chord tones and sit there and do exercises with the chord tones until everything starts to lay. Because that's not, because I don't do that very often. That's where I'd love to do that. I'd love to be a jazz player, but
I heard a lot of jazz language in what you're playing tonight. I mean, I heard a lot of stuff.
okay, well, yeah, it's in there somewhere, and I try not to put too much in there too, because I want to be more Maceo-like.
Yeah.
But I also just want to just sound like me.
Yeah.
I think that's important.
Well, it sounded great. It was fantastic. I mean, and while I'm listening, some of the solos are like you got 8 bars or whatever, depending on the arrangement of the tune. And it's like, like I'm going up there, I have to entertain all these people with 8 bars. I gotta shine. I gotta get up to the high notes. I gotta, like, you have such a short period of time to kind of get all of that information out there.
Yeah.
That's
What would you do in that situation if you had to do that night after night? You had 8 bars. And now are you going to try to create something new every time through those 8 bars?
I wouldn't necessarily. No, I would. And this is what I try to tell people. I would say I would have some plan, and then like a loose sort of plan, and say, yeah, I'm gonna, like, if I have 8 bars and whatever the tune is, I'm gonna be like, yeah, like by the time I get here, I'm gonna be up. I'm gonna be doing this thing or whatever.
When you're on a big tour and you're playing it night after night after night, and you kind of have brain fog, and you have to play a solo over those 8 bars, you might resort to you knowing what works.
I definitely would.
Yeah. So I do that. So for instance, on James Brown, I went back to the beginning of the Maceo solo. That first lick I played is right out of what Maceo played on that tune.
Right.
Yeah, so I just start with his lick and then try not to play too many notes, because that's hard. Maceo does so much with 5 notes sometimes. That's just still learning how to play like him. It's like, who plays like Maceo? Eddie Menenfield, Eddie M. Do you know Eddie M?
No.
You don't know Eddie M?
I don't.
He plays with Sheila E.
Okay.
Yeah, that will actually hook you up with him.
Yeah.
Eddie M's like incredibly funky.
Oh yeah.
He's just ridiculous. He sounds he's definitely a Maceo disciple.
I love what you said. Like, try not to play too many notes. It's because I tell myself the same thing.
Yeah.
Like, hey, don't play too many notes, and then I do, and what's wrong with you?
And I bet you both of us and so many people listening are like complete Brecker fans.
Everybody.
Brecker and Sanborn are like my 2 top favorite guys, along with Train and Dexter and Lenny and Stanley Turrentine. But I can't play like Brecker. I can play sometimes like Brecker. I think I could do a lot of his stuff. I just need to practice more.
Sure.
That's all of a sudden. But right now, with the while I'm working, and plus I'm old.
It's interesting. So Brecker plays all this amazing stuff, and you're just like, wow, there's so many notes. But sometimes, like, when you just listen to it and you start transcribing, you're like, wait, there's this whole thing he played, and he didn't play a lot of notes. It's beautiful. He would do that a lot too. A lot of great players, but it's like when people have a ton of technique, we tend to be like, just identify them as like chops always,
So, it's interesting too, because I remember last time I was in New York, I went to a lot of places before COVID, and I was there for a little while, and I heard some different players that could do stuff that I couldn't do. But I also noticed that I also heard several young players that all sounded kind of alike, where I couldn't differentiate them from, like they could shed through changes, and it was amazing, but it didn't move me necessarily, even though. So I'm not impressed just because you can play fast through a bunch of changes.
Right. Yeah.
I'm impressed when you create something that's a solo.
Right.
And Becker usually did that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he usually had architecture through
Sure.
solos. And one of the things I would say to all sax players that my teacher, Don Raffel, taught me. So Don Raffel was a cat. I went to Cal State LA in 1980. And Don was a studio musician, played all double down on everything, played in the Nelson Riddle Orchestra, and he subbed on the Tonight Show band. And I was taking lessons from him, and he taught me how to swing properly, how to articulate, and he told me two things I want to share. One is what I call the rule of 10. He said, Tom, for every great sax player you ever hear, no matter where that is, you could be in a bar in Warsaw, Poland, and walk in and hear some great tenor player that's just shedding changes. He goes, for every player that you hear that's good, he says, I guarantee you there's 10 more guys that play that good that you'll never know about. So all I can say is the best thing you can learn to do is sound like yourself. Don't sound like anybody else. You learn by imitating, but then just take all that stuff and make it into your own thing. So I hope I've been halfway successful with that so far, because people tell me the one thing I know when they hear my sound or the way I play is you don't sound like anybody else. So for good or bad, some people will like that. Yeah, that's what he always said. Not everybody will like that. Not everybody will prefer my playing. I don't expect them to. There's when other people get chosen for gigs or stuff. I had a friend do an album recently. I was a little sad he didn't ask me to play on one tune, but that's okay.
I want to ask you. So first, when you got the phone call about the audition,
Okay.
and you're like, "This is my gig," I was waiting for you to tell me like what you did from that moment until the audition to prepare and make sure that was your gig.
I learned every tune that Lenny Pickett had a solo on, and what the solo was, and I guess kept telling myself to play like me, not like him. Don't play like him at all.
Okay.
And I'd been in a funk band for almost 10 years where I was allowed to play sometimes for 5 minutes.
Right.
I mean, really long solos.
Yeah.
I was in a band with Tony Lindsay, you know who he is? Lead singer with Santana for 25
Oh,
years.
okay. Yeah. Well, I've heard of
Yeah, one of my dear friends. So that band we had back in the 90s was called Spangalang in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area. And so I just said, that's what I did to prepare. I just learned all the tower tunes. And when I went to the audition, I was very excited, but thankfully I was fairly relaxed at the same time. I felt prepared.
Well prepared, yeah.
And the first thing they threw at me was Knock Yourself Out solo, right? You familiar with that?
I'm familiar with that tune, yeah.
Well, Lenny Pickett plays like a 12-minute
Yeah,
solo
okay.
on the live version. And this is kind of a funny story. I already knew that, I meet these guys for the first time, and he goes, do you know the tune Knock Yourself Out? And I said, yeah, it's in the key of F, right, concert. And he goes, yeah, right. He said, well, rhythm section's going to start playing. I just want you to play solo. So I already knew that I was going to let the rhythm section cook for 8 bars, right? I mean, I'm going to listen and play. Never met David Garibaldi. Well, no, I had met David, but didn't know Rocco. Or I actually had met 2 of them. Anyway, so they start vamping, and they go 8 bars. And I sat there and go like, I'm going to let them go another 8 bars before I start playing. And Emilio said to Larry Braggs, the lead singer in the booth, he goes, is this guy ever going to start playing? But I did it on purpose because I just wanted to feel where their groove was and how they play together. And then I started playing. And I just did what I would normally do with Spangling, which is like, I'm building a solo. So I started easy. Generally, I play very rhythmically. I try to I'll try to turn a lick backwards rhythmically. You know, that's one thing I need to work on again. I used to do that really, you know, put it in all kinds of rhythmic places, and then I move the motif in a different place.
Can you like do a simple example of that for anybody who might not understand?
I don't know. You know, just leaving space and learning how to subdivide 16th notes and be able to start the lick on any one of those 16th notes and just kind of staggered syncopation. Yeah, I wish if I had my horn, I could probably do it better. So I started playing the solo, and I kept going and going, and then I felt the rhythm section listening to me, and I kept playing, and basically, I played for 3 minutes and 12 seconds when Emilio just cut me off and said, "Okay, that's enough. That was great." And at 3 minutes and 12 seconds, I was starting to play about high and some fast stuff and some lines, right? Because I didn't play lines for at least a minute or two.
Right,
like
you were
no lines.
Yeah, you were
there
building
were no lines.
rhythmic motives and developing things.
There was no jazz.
No jazz yet.
No jazz yet. No.
Okay.
But then.
But your plan was kind of like, all right, let me kind of show them who I am.
Oh, I'm going to do me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then they had me play. It was kind of interesting. They had me play a solo on This Time It's Real, which is a shuffle. And there's no sax solo on This Time It's Real. But I'd kind of like played through it a few times. And I said, do you think you could play a solo on This Time It's Real? I want to hear you play shuffle. And I go like, yeah, I'm pretty sure I can do that one. And so I played a solo on that one. And that felt pretty good. And then he threw some changes at me in a weird key. And I went like, it was like in the first clad was like D flat 7. D flat 7. That's E flat 7 for tenor. And I said, oh,
He's giving you concert changes.
Yeah, so I didn't do so well on that one, but I did okay. You know, I didn't play any wrong notes. I didn't like, but it wasn't like you just wanted to see, you just threw left turn on me. But I was confident enough. I felt really good that after I did that audition, I left the place and I went like, at least I played really well. If they don't pick me, it's not because I didn't do a good audition. I did a good audition. I felt really strong about my playing. And then I had to wait because they auditioned like 9 or 10 other people. I had to wait that long.
Right.
You know, and then I finally got the call back like 3.5 weeks later, like, you want to come and do a gig with us? We'll send you the charts. So the first two gigs I did with Tower, I was reading charts.
And there was no rehearsal, just straight on the bass.
No, I had about 10 days to prepare.
Right, but I mean, you didn't get to play what you were preparing on your own?
It was a piece of cake. Well, I think what clinched the gig for me too is like there was a couple charts that were wrong that I transcribed and figured out my part. And one was the 16-bar ending on You Got to Groove. And so I go like, okay, I'm the middle voice, trumpet, lead tenor, second tenor, baritone. So pretty easy to find. So I wrote out, and I kind of pasted it on the bottom of the part. And at the sound check, Amelia goes, I have to teach you the ending to this song. And I said, yeah, I know, it wasn't on the chart. I said, I wrote it out. It's right there. And he started looking at it. I said, I'm not sure it's right. And then we played through it, and it was right. And then he kind of went. And then there was another chart that I had to do 8 bars, and he wrote that. And he looked at me and he goes, you're a good man, Tom Politzer. And I'm thinking like, well, who wouldn't do this? You gave me the chart. This is my gig.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so do the work. You know? Do the work. I mean, if you want the gig, do the work. Do the work.
charts, but again, like Tower Power, there's nobody's reading charts, everybody. So just for those first couple of gigs, but you eventually had to memorize everything.
Yeah, and we have a new trumpet player coming in a couple of weeks, and he's probably going to be reading charts for a while.
Oh, okay, so that's okay for us for like
Yeah.
to get you, get your feet wet, get in there.
But Emilio goes, after those 2 gigs I did in Minnesota, he goes, so we want to take you to Europe. Can you go to Europe next month in a couple of weeks? And I said, yeah. And he goes, so how many tunes do you think you can memorize in like little over 2 weeks? And I said, I honestly don't have any idea. I've never sat down and just tried to memorize songs. And he said, do you think you could do 4 a week? And I said, that sounds reasonable. But I actually was able to get 24 tunes memorized in 2 weeks. But that took 4 or 5 hours a day.
Okay.
Every day.
All right.
4 or 5 hours a day, every day, memorizing tunes. And I got to a system of memorizing tunes. I started realizing, okay, this tune, the horn parts rhythmically stay the same, but now the voicing changes. We move up and change. That's what they, So I kind of like had my little system of like, I'm just going to memorize all the different choruses, and then I'm going to get the different verses. And I had figured out a system of memorizing that came pretty quick.
Because it's tricky when you're doing like inner voices. Like it's one thing if you're playing like the lead or something, I think that's easy, or playing Barry.
It's like playing second alto or second tenor in a jazz band.
Yeah.
It's the hardest parts.
Yeah, because sometimes it's crunchy, the harmonies too.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not like you're playing the third or something,
Yeah, but just, I remember sax solos in big bands.
Yeah,
And you're
for sure.
playing second tenor.
Yeah.
And you're going like, what? If
Yeah.
you're playing Barry or lead alto,
It's easy. You're playing roots and you're playing the melody.
You're playing the melody, yeah, generally.
Yeah.
It depends on who the composer is, but if it's Thad Jones or Lenny Niehaus or, or Sammy Nestico.
Yeah, so you would have to have some sort of system. So now, when you need to memorize tunes for a tour, you're like, you have a system like you can like, okay, I know what to do.
Yeah, I can memorize a tune in 90 minutes, 2 hours.
Okay.
We'll see. We got a bunch of Christmas stuff. We have a new Christmas album, folks.
New Christmas album.
And Tower Power Christmas album. Should have done a long time ago. Christmas albums,
You never did a Christmas album.
no. Christmas albums, they don't, it's got to sound pretty good. Yeah, because Christmas albums have a long shelf life. People keep buying them every year.
Yeah.
And so I think I'm actually pretty impressed. I think it's a nice Christmas album.
So it's already
Go ahead.
recorded, mixed, mastered, everything ready to go. It's
They're
gonna,
doing string parts on 3 songs right now in LA.
but it's coming out for this Christmas, so that's gonna have to
I
be
think we're going to
October.
have an EP release,
Okay.
and then the full release of all the tunes, which I think were 12 tunes. It was 12 tunes. So yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, just remember it. People might say, "Well, that didn't sound like Tower Power," and I go like, "Well, they're Christmas songs. They sound enough like Tower Power playing Christmas songs. I
I'm
mean, we
sure.
funked them up a little bit, for sure."
You guys have
But,
so many fans.
But I tell you, it's a really nice Christmas album. I'm
Sure
really
it is.
impressed. I kind of went into this project thinking like, well, okay, I hope they know what we're doing, because we have an arranger like Dave Eskridge and basically Emilio and Joe Vanelli, they produced the album, and Gino Vanelli. So they did a lot of it, and Joe's a really great jazz keyboard player, so they came up with a way of reharmonizing stuff, and yeah, I think it's nice. Well, I hope people will like it. I think people will.
Sure.
Yeah.
Digging on James Brown.
Hey, so I want to ask you 2 more things. Well, one is about gear. I always ask everybody about gear.
Of course, yeah.
So tell us like what you're playing setup.
So when I joined Tower, they're sponsored by Yamaha, and my horn I was playing a Selmer Balanced from 1950. At the time I was playing an Autolink 8-star that had been refaced a bit, and then I was approached by Yamaha. Said, "We'd like you to endorse our horns, but we don't want you to play our horns if you don't like it." They sent me like the first horn they sent me was one of the unlacquered in Custom Z's, and I played it for 3 months, and then I came home and played my balance. I go like, "Nah, I can't do this one." And then I called her Norbert. I said, Norbert I said, "Norbert, what's the good Yamaha Z that you liked playing?" He goes, "Get the black lacquered one." And I said, "Why?" He said, "Because that's the darkest horn." So I don't know what it is. It says maybe because the lacquer's on, it's just got a little more low end. So then they literally sent me 6 horns. They sent me 3 black lacquered and 2 regular lacquered. I mean, literally UPS showed up with 6 big boxes.
A pallet of saxophones.
So that was fun because I got to play through all those horns, and really liked the black one. And then they came out with a new horn about 5 years ago with the 1-piece bell. So now that's what I'm playing now, another black lacquered one. I think the options for saxophone players, mouthpiece, reeds, horns now is amazing.
There's so many options.
It's really, and there's a lot of companies making good saxophones now.
So many good things.
I really love my Yamaha, but I just played Bob Mintzer's new horn from Eastman, the one that he helped design. And then I was with, Remy in Amsterdam.
Yeah.
He kind of looked at my horn when I came in. I wanted to meet him. And I played his horn that Seamus Blake plays.
Yeah.
And I think he's making one for Joshua Redmond. And that horn played great.
Yeah.
It had a really round toe, and I go like, okay. So, and now somebody just told me that Selmer's actually got one that's really good again.
I have one at my house.
The newest one?
Yeah.
What's it called?
Supreme. Yeah.
The tenor and alto.
The alto came out 2 years ago, and now the tenor just came out.
Yeah.
It was debuted at NAMM, so back in April.
So yeah, I'm curious to play that.
What's some quick advice for altissimo and like intonation and rhythm? Like those things are strong characteristics of your playing. Like playing super
I
rhythmically.
have no idea. I got to where I play altissimo really organically, and I worked top tones for saxophones, the Sigmund Rauscher book,
Yeah.
and the other one, the Nash book.
Yeah.
And I did all those exercises, and I started doing them again. And you have to do those exercises. If you can't finger low B flat, low B, low C, and play through the whole harmonic overtone series.
Yeah.
And I also used to tell students too that remember that a squeak is an altissimo note.
Right.
So if you can learn how to hang on to a squeak and figure out what you're doing with your embouchure that made it squeak. But more often than not, I liken playing altissimo to walking on a tightrope. Like my first professional gig was in a circus band. I don't know if you knew this.
I didn't.
Yeah, I played with the Circus Vargas band for like almost 2 years straight, and then on and off for the partial of the next 2 years. So 4 years of my life, from like 1980 to 84, I was traveling around the country, playing in a tent, in a circus band, with elephants and lions and dogs and trapeze and high wire. And the high wire act set up a practice wire that was about 3 and 4 feet off the ground. So one day I said, hey, can I walk on it? And they gave me a pole, and I learned to walk across the wire with the pole with my sneakers. Pretty easy. It's only, I could fall off that and I'm not going to hurt myself. But those guys go up on the high wire, and then they use somersaults on there, and they walk across it without a pole and do all this stuff, right? 40 feet up in the air. And it's kind of, so the precision that it takes to walk on a high wire is the same precision it takes to find out where that one place on the reed is where the note speaks. Because it's the same thing you see guitar players do when they hit that harmonic note and they tap the string. They're doing the same thing, I think. So I've just, through trial and error, and a lot of it I think is trial and error. Look up fingerings. There's a lot of fingerings online. I've made up my own fingerings. I'm trying to actually, I know a lot of guys use side keys. Have you ever interviewed Woody Witt?
No.
You know, Woody's a professor of saxophone at University of Houston and a great jazz player and a friend. And he was saying, I've been meaning to call him. He says, I'll show you how to do all that stuff. Because he was saying, yeah, you can play scales up here easy with the side keys more. So I haven't taken the time to learn that. But the notes I hit, and I also will sit there and do long tones on them now. Like play slow scales up there, try to find some way to, when I have the note, to warm it up, try to put a little vibrato on it. Because as soon as I put some vibrato on it, it sounds warmer, you know? Trial and error. Yeah, if you really want to play altissimo, just don't give up.
Right. And you got to spend a lot of time up there. But without,
Also, your setup.
Yeah.
Some setups and some reeds won't do it.
sure.
So you have to try different reeds. Like I'll go, like today, I went through an old reed because like I really like doing that second octave glissando up in the whistle tones. I like being able to do that like a couple times in the show. None of my reeds were doing it. I go like, okay, I guess I won't do that today. And I finally pulled out an old one, and it played great because all these reeds have been played on the other mouthpiece. So I haven't played this reed on the Berg, and it worked really well tonight. So maybe tomorrow I have time to open a new box and I'll go through some ones that I have. Like, I got 3 reed cases that each hold 10 reeds. Mm-hmm. And then I have also some of those old Van Doren that hold 4 reeds. Mm-hmm. So I have 4 of those. So, I mean, I could like...
Do you mark them? Do you like...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Differently every time, too.
Right.
So I have ones that are marked DK 1, 2, 3, 4 for Denmark, because that's when I broke open the box.
Oh,
It was in Denmark. Yeah, I used to name... One time I named reeds after guys in the band. Sal for Sal Crackhill or Adolfo.
Okay.
Yeah, whatever.
But just so you can keep track.
Just so I can differentiate them. Yeah. And then if I'm get a bunch of good reeds, I kind of number them from what I think is the best one to the worst, but sometimes, the 4th one ends up being the best one after several weeks.
Right, because
So
they evolve.
Yeah.
They mutate.
when they're new, they soak up a lot of water. As they get older, they get drier and drier. And so you have to soak them longer, I find. Some guys, have these cases that I guess surfers keep stuff in to keep it dry. So there's this case that will hold 10 reeds, and they put little sponges in there with Listerine to keep the things wet. I haven't tried that yet.
What do you do? Where do you just keep them in regular reed cases?
I just soak them in water for a
And then
long
you
time.
soak them.
Yeah.
Soak them before you play them.
So Morrow.
Yeah.
Joya. So Morrow said, yeah, just soak them. Yeah. Says that work. He thinks that works good.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew Morrow before he invented the reed geek, and started doing that. I remember the first time he came to a show in Tahoe, and he says, give me your worst reed. And he sat there and worked on it for like 25 minutes, and I played a new one.
North Sea.
So that's a great story for me to share with people.
Yeah.
Because I'm a huge Pat Metheny fan, Pat Metheny band, and I saw that they were on the bill with us. And I get back to the dressing room area, and I got there early because I wanted to hear some music with a few of us. And I saw Pat Metheny's dressing room, and then there's our dressing room. And so I kind of opened the door and peeked in, and Lyle Mays and Steve Rodby were in there. And they go like, oh, okay. I go, say, I'm Tom Politzer, and I go, I play in Tower Power, and I'm just so excited. You playing? And they go, you playing Tower Power? Is Rocco here? You know, he goes, Rocco, are you guys here yet? We're here early, so we want to meet you guys. And I went like, and they were like fanboys, and I'm going like, wow, this is surprising to me.
Yeah.
This is like, I'm coming as a fanboy for you guys because I love their music, and then when the band showed up, they were there and getting pictures with Dave and Rocco and having us sign stuff, and I was going like, "Wow, amazing, Steve Rotby," from. And then they, of course, were on the side of the stage, and Pat wasn't on the side. I don't think Pat heard our set unless he was back in the dressing room. But yeah, but they did, and Antonio Sanchez showed up too. So he was playing drums, yeah.
Nice.
So then I got to watch their set. They were right after us. So check out, he plays in the Heavy Tone. He was on a TV band called the Heavy Tones.
Okay.
And now they have another TV show. He's a really unique, great player from Germany. And he's literally my brother from another mother. He's become one of my best friends. Let me finish with this story. Nobody does this. In 2003, I was playing at the Muffet Hall in Munich, and I was playing my Selmer, and I was still playing on a Ray Hyman neck strap. And the last tune that we played was the encore was I Got to Groove. And at one point, we're doing a little dance, and we do this little hop step. You could all still do it back then. And I do this thing, and I go up, and I remember it was like my saxophone. I have my hands around my sax, but it comes off the hook, and I remember it starts. I can realize the shot, and I remember it was like slow motion. It's like I try to catch it, and it hits the floor and goes ba-dam dam, and it bounces on the floor. My balance.
You're balanced on that.
My balance, and I pick it up, and the right stack will not close at all. And this is like 8 bars before I have to play a solo. So all I could do was play rhythmic altissimo. Because that's the only thing that would come out.
Show must go on.
Yeah. And we got to and Torsten saw it, and we became friends. In fact, he had made a gig for us and made a CD. I came back to Munich 2 weeks later to rehearse and do this live gig. So he goes, oh man, I saw your horn. That guy said, it's completely messed up. And I said, you got a guy here in Munich? He goes, oh yeah, we have the best guy. I go, who's that? He goes, Max Fry. And Max Fry is one of the best sax technicians in the world. He really is. So I will get your horn to Max. And he goes, and then he looks at me and goes, so what are you going to do about a horn to play? I go like, can I borrow a tenor? And he goes, of course you can, because he had 2 tenors.
Sure.
And he had a silver-plated Yamaha Custom Z and a silver-plated Summer. And I said, let me try the Yamaha because they want me to play Yamaha. So I finished the tour playing his silver-plated Yamaha, which played great, easy to play. Meanwhile, he gives the horn up to Max Fry, and Max Fry cancels everything to work on my balance and literally strips the horn down to the body. I mean, takes the posts off.
Yeah.
So unsolders the posts so he can straighten out the horn and then make sure all the tone holes are even.
Yeah.
And this starts rebuilding the horn from there. And basically kind of only worked on my horn for like 10 days. Putting new key cups, putting new pearls in there.
So you did a number on it. You really messed it up.
So yeah, so he and Torsten was checking. He goes, and I go, hey, just ballpark. I want to pay max cash. I'm thinking it's going to be, and this was 2003 prices. I'm thinking this is going to be between 1,200 and 1,600 euros. This is like a huge repair. So I'm prepared for 16. And Torsten's going, don't worry about it. We'll work it out. So I get there, pick up my horn, and it literally plays better than it's ever played before. I mean, more of the lacquers come off.
Sure.
Because it had to. So it didn't look great, but it plays beautifully, and it's just a machine again. And I go to Max, and I say, okay, I pick up this big wad of euros, and I go, how much do I owe you? And he goes like, oh, you don't owe me anything. He says, talk to Torsten. I go, yo, bro, you can't pay for this. No, it's not a case. He goes, oh, I didn't pay for it. I go like, who paid for it? The saxophone fairy? And he goes, no, I took out this 8 years ago. I got this form of personal liability insurance that I've kept it going, and I've never used it. So I called them up, and I said that I knocked your horn over by accident in the dressing room, and it fell on the floor and created all this damage. And they covered it. And I said, you got to be kidding. Who does that for anybody? That's that dude, Torsten.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how big his heart is. He's just the biggest, hardest guy. He's just incredible. I mean, he's really become an incredible player. Totally unique. A one note guy. Again, with my teacher, Don Rafael, would say, he doesn't sound like anybody else. He's uniquely his own sign. Look him up on YouTube. Torsten, Thorsten, Scringer, Skranger. Scringer. I will.
Oh,
Let's
Tom,
work later.
thanks.
I'll let you go. That was a long, fucking long.
Have a beer.
Yeah.